Well, welcome everybody, and I'm happy to see everybody here. Women's Forum, yay. And
yes, this is,
as I was saying, I love for everybody to learn about the environment and wildlife, and that's why I do this. So I hope you like things that go bump in the night. This is pretty much, you'll learn all the critters that are out there and the ones that are making noises and the ones that you think are making noises and it's not them. So I'll dispel all of those misconceptions as well. So I'm ready to go whenever everybody else is.
awesome. Well, let me just welcome everybody to our presentation this afternoon. This lecture is actually our first collaboration between the Women's Forum of Litchfield and the Litchfield Historical Society. So this is a wonderful opportunity for our two groups to work together and fulfill our shared mission of educating our community. So the forum has speakers for 8 months of the year on a wide range of topics, informative, fun, serious, educational, and general interest to all. So we welcome everyone to join the Women's Forum. Before we begin, I wanted to share a few of the programs that the Women's Forum has coming up. Postponed from January due to COVID-related concerns. Speaker Jennifer Grant, the Director of Wellness Center Programs at CJR, will be here next Thursday. So that's February 10th, same time, same place, same Zoom. Well, different Zoom link, but also on Zoom. She'll be talking about the pressures of COVID and related isolation and how they've affected teens, which of course is a period of time when social interactions are a vital part of the growing process. But of course, you know, those COVID pressures and impacts, of course, are problems that we adults face as well. So take a look for an email reminder for that coming soon. And then also mark your calendars for Thursday, March 3rd, which there'll be another interesting program, which is going to be out of town. And of course, on the Litchfield Historical Society calendar, we have some great events coming up. February 11th, we are doing a evening lantern tour of Litchfield's historic district. It's going to be Valentine's themed. So we'll start with cocktails and treats and then head out into the dark. February 17th, we have our next very popular trivia night. There's only a couple spots left. So if you have a team and want to participate in our More Than Just History trivia, sign up soon before those spots are filled up. And then of course, February 20th, we have our next lecture with the League of Women Voters partnership. And that is going to be the speaker, Richard Hirsch, who's going to be talking about the public education battlefield that we are all experiencing right now. So with all of that housekeeping done, I am absolutely thrilled to introduce our speaker for today, Ginny Apple. Ginny is a master wildlife conservationist with the State Department of Education and Environmental Protection and was one of the first full-time sports writers in the country, which I think is so cool.
Women's
yeah, she is the chair of the Barkhamsted Conservation and Economic Development Commissions, is on the board of the Farmington River Watershed Association, the Friends of the American Legion, and People's State Forests, as well as the Friends of Connecticut State Parks, and volunteers regularly with the Barkhamsted Historical Society. Throughout the years, Ginny has climbed, hiked, kayaked, skied, and poked her way through the outdoors and developed a passion for all things natural. So without further ado, Ginny, thank you so much for being here today. And I am very excited to know what exactly is going bump in the night.
Okay. Well, first I want to say quickly, I did work for judicial branch for 20 years and I worked with the Litchfield Historical Society. And I have to say, I worked with a lot of historical societies in the state and theirs is like top notch. I mean, it is just, you can get almost any information you want. They're very helpful and friendly and you're very, very lucky to not only have them in your town and area, but also have them join with the Women's Forum for combined events. So just like to say that. And I'm going to disappear myself when I get my PowerPoint up and hopefully you enjoy hearing about things that go bump in the night. So I'm going to share my screen. Slideshow. Gotta disappear myself. Hold on. All right. Things that go bump in the night. You probably wondered when you saw this what that means or anything, but as the setting sun for many animals marks the beginning of their new day. A nighttime community starts to emerge and teams with lurking predators and wary prey that have adapted to life with little light. Our bunnies are out, which always amazes me because they're preyed upon by many of these creatures that go bump in the night. But nocturnal animals do use highly developed sensory mechanisms to spot predators. Bats, for instance, and we'll talk about this in the talk, they echolocate, which means they emit these high-pitched signals that we can't hear, and they use their large ears to pick up the echoes that bounce off of moths and other potential meals. But the prey also adapts themselves, and moths have developed a hearing system that can quickly recognize this echolocution, and then the moths can fold their wings and fall down, just narrowly escaping the jaws of the swooping bats. So such survival mechanisms of both predator and prey keep the nocturnal food web in balance. Most wildlife species are nocturnal, and daytime sightings of them are rare. That has changed a little bit in Connecticut. We can have bears who used to be crepuscular, which means they come out a little before dawn and go in a little before, come out a little before dusk and go in a little before dawn, but that's changed now largely to human populations and birdseed and garbage. We can also see bobcat during the day. We can see fox. It doesn't mean they're rabid. So the cycles are a little different here, but still a lot of these animals are still out at night. In the morning, in the snow, it's a great time, although this rain may affect the tracking. But whenever we get new snow, go out in your yard and check out the tracks first thing in the morning. It's just a wonder because you can see all the intersections of the different wildlife species. During the winter, the cold air and the lack of vegetation helps magnify sounds, making them more eerie and scary. Each evening, the visual world does change. The lights fade, as you know, images become indistinct and color disappears. Humans are not that well suited for seeing in nighttime. The sun, as it retreats and humans go inside, most sight-dependent creatures won't be out. So then as people close doors against their darkness, the woodlands and the meadows, even the cities, yes, even the cities come alive with these creatures of the night. I always like to think of that line in All About Eve, which says, Betty Davis is going up the stairs and she says, fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night. Although I don't even know what kind of seatbelts she was talking about back then because cars didn't have seatbelts, but maybe because she was an actress, maybe airplanes, I don't know. But anyway, many animals do work the night shift because darkness offers them protection from the heat of day. Others seek the darkness to hide from predators and to get their food. But as prey behavior dictates predator behavior, a large number of predators also hunt during the night, and this being one, the great horned owl. Nocturnal predators also fill an ecological niche distinct from their diurnal predators. By hunting at night, for example, most owls do not compete with the diurnal raptors, like your red-tailed hawks and other birds of prey that are out during the day. And since most hunters are in turn hunted by something else, the predators also find protection in darkness. Prey and predator species that successfully work the night shift have adapted in various ways to their light reduced environment. And we'll show you this and talk about circle of life and Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. A little night music, sun sets, darkness falls, and the night world band strikes up a wild cacophony of voices. You'll hear buzzes, hoots, squawks, whistles, grunts, screams, howls, squeaks, croaks. Just a myriad of sounds enliven our forests, meadowlands, and wetlands. Interesting side note is a lot of horror movies. There's a whole group of people devoted to when the next horror movie comes out, because in the past, before we had computers that could really make all kinds of sounds, most of these night predator sounds were used for different screams, different horror sounds in horror movies. So these people all wait for the next horror flick to see if what animal might be used for some of those scary sounds. The great horned owl's hoot may be the classic night voice, the soft hoo-hoo sounding gently in the darkness, or our most common owl, the barred owl, who says, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you?" Pausing in the nighttime hunt, the owl lights on a tree limb and will call often before continuing its rounds. Other night birds add to this feathered symphony. The sounds of silence, not. Despite large eyes, owls do not rely on sight to hunt. They can locate and nab prey unerringly using their finely tuned sense of hearing. Their ears are asymmetrical. One is set higher on the head than the other, allowing the bird to orient in a vertical as well as a horizontal plane relative to which ear hears the sound first. Pretty amazing. Upper left is the barn owl, which is a threatened species here in Connecticut. You probably won't see them. The research has shown that if a barn owl is sitting 10 feet away from a mouse in an unlit barn, it can locate the mouse accurately to within 3 inches. Because prey animals often rely on sound to alert them, the owl has evolved as a silent hunter. They have wide rounded wings and soft feathers that can fly soundlessly. I've seen one chase a rabbit, in darkness, and you really just cannot hear them. They have a serrated edge on their first primary feather, which are those wing feathers, and that breaks up and silences the flow of air across the wings. So like many animal species, they're very well adapted for what they have to do to survive. Owls also hunt in the same terrain night after night, which gives them an advantage of the knowledge of terrain to aid in their hunt. It has been found about the barn owl that it eats 79 pounds of mice per year. I guess this year, a lot of us would like to have one around, and that doesn't include any other prey it might ingest. The ghostly bird's sudden chilling presence helps explain why the barn owl was believed to be an animal of very bad omen in the past. A species that hardly utters the sound for most of the year, it starts to scream around Halloween. You'll start hearing the screams at Halloween when the juvenile barn owls start seeking a mate and learning they have this like incredibly scary voice which can call out mates. While barn owls that have a worldwide distribution often mate for life, singletons can also be pretty noisy. The males will scream when guarding the females during the spring. And if the nest or chicks are threatened by humans or predators, the barn owl will emit a loud, scary hiss, which you will hear. Not all owls hoot. These are the owls that we do have in our state. The saw-whet is a visitor in the winter, and you're lucky if you get to hear or see it. But owls can make a wide range of other sounds. They can screech, they can whistle, bark, hiss, growl. It's amazing how many sounds they can make. During the nesting season, their calls can be heard up to a mile away. Generally, the females have a higher voice than the males, not surprising. The English naturalist Gilbert White wrote in the 1780s that the barn owl's cries had whole villages imagining the churchyard to be full of goblins and specters. And I'm sure maybe people in Litchfield back then felt the same way. So now I'm going to let you hear some of these sounds. This is a barn owl right here. You hold on to your chairs. Pretty scary sound. Here's another barn owl. That's their hiss. And incidentally, I am babysitting a dog, and if the owner comes to get her and opens the door, the dog may bark. So I forgot to tell you that. So here's a barred owl. So we all know that one. Often they'll echo each other. Here's another barred owl noise. Now we know that was probably used in the werewolf movies. Here's a great horned owl pair. Let me play that again. You can hear the other one off, way off in the distance. And by the way, birders call the great horned owl the GHO. It's not the golf tournament, but in birders world, they call it the GHO. Here's its scream. That one I like, pretty cool. Might scare you walking out to your car on a dark night. That's another typical great horned owl sound. Here's a squawk by the great horned owl. And here is the little bitty screech owl. So as you can see, lot of noises in the night from our owls. Incidentally, the young barred owls make this really weird whistling noise when they're born in the spring, and it's a noise that you'll sit out there and say, "What the heck is that?" And the way you can tell is that it's a bird, at least, is that it's high up as opposed to ground. So that's another way our ears can help us try to differentiate what kind of animal is making the sound. Come on, let your light or your eyes shine. Why is it that the animal's eyes glow in the night? Science refer to these phenomena as eye shine or retroreflection. They always have a long word for it. Retroreflection depends on another long word, a Latin word, tapetum lucidum, which means bright carpet, a mirror-like reflective tissue found behind the retina of an animal's eye. Some animals have successfully adapted to the night shift with their enhanced ability to see at night. Nocturnal species like owls and raccoons have large eyes with pupils that dilate widely. Enlarging the pupil 4 times its original size helps increase the amount of light the eye can gather by a factor of 16, pretty incredible. The light colored eyes, like the yellow and the orange, areas and fur around those eyes, sometimes called eye discs, surround the eyes, also increase the reflection of light. The back portion of that night eye is oversized, producing a larger image for the hunters. Owl eyes are so large, there's no room for muscles to move their eyes. They move their heads instead. And no, they cannot turn their head all the way around like Linda Blair in The Exorcist, but their flexible necks can be turned almost 180 degrees to either side, so they can look almost directly backwards. Essentially, the light rays that enter the eye are returned in the direction from which they come, and that tapetum lucidum gives the eye a second chance to absorb as much light reflected by the retina. I mean, imagine if we could have that kind of light, we probably would be like stunned. The light that's not absorbed is re-emitted, and that gives that eerie glow that you see here, their eye shine. So different animals have different colored eye shines. No one ever guesses what's in the top right, but those are raccoons. Of course, a fox down at the bottom left. I couldn't resist putting out these lions because they were just all together with all that eye shine. And then the owls up there. So next time you see a glowing pair of eyes staring you in the face, you'll know it's not some ghoulish monster coming to get you, but rather a local animal with some well-designed nighttime eyes that's trying to get a better look at you. I learned from a biologist friend of mine, I forget when it was, we were out hiking in the full moon hike, and all of a sudden she has a really, really exceptional headlamp called a zebra. And all of a sudden I saw these like little things in the ground that looked like lightning bugs. They weren't, but they were bugs that were reflected by the light. So next time you're hiking at night, shine your light out into the brush and you'll be amazed at what you see. If your headlights have ever caught the luminescent glow of a deer's eye, you've seen another night vision that is that tapetum lucidum, or the eye shine. Deer you'll always see. You'll see bobcats, most animals. And if you're driving along at a decent speed, I contend that most of us drive too fast at night, our roads are dark, and animals like moose and porcupine are very dark and hard to see at night. So we really should go slowly on these roads. And guess what? A moose, you can't see a moose eye shine. And that's because the moose is so tall, it's even taller than those big jacked up Ford Ram trucks. So the headlights aren't high enough to hit the moose eyes. So that leads another reason why moose are so likely to be hit. Now I'm going to play you some of the noises that deer make. You may or may not know this. So that's a fawn's distress call. It does sound like a little baby, doesn't it? Here's a buck and their dominant grunt. I'm hoping this dog, who's a kind of she's a scouter dog for biologists. I hope she doesn't bark at these noises. Here's a deer wheeze. I mean, that's some sound unless you hunt, you may not even know what the heck that is. And then here's a doe when it's bleeding. Hold on. So they make many sounds. These are a few of the more common, but you know, a lot of us probably don't even know these deer make these sounds. Owls have a binocular vision. They have a field of vision about 110 degrees, with 70 of that being binocular vision. Again, they can turn their heads up to 260 degrees. They also have 3 eyelids in order to protect their eyes. The upper one is for blinking, the lower one for sleeping, and the third is called a nictitating membrane, and it's like an opaque covering over their eyes, which other animals, even like a bobcat, beaver, have those, and that keeps debris out of their eyes. They also, interestingly enough, have 14 vertebrae in their necks, which is why they can turn their heads so far. We have only 7. So collective senses, many nocturnal animals do lack the high profile adaptations of real night specialists like bat and owls. Instead, they do call on their collective senses of sight, smell, and hearing, even touch, to make nighttime living work for them. Some of these nocturnal mammals are familiar to people, while others are rarely seen. Of course, the banded masked raccoon is a nocturnal hunter. In Connecticut, you might see them in the day, but not so much. Not only does it have excellent hearing, as is typical of many nocturnal animals, it's very keen to strange noises. It has excellent night vision, but it is colorblind. So I guess waving a red flag at it's not going to do anything. Its tactile sense of feeling, though, sets it apart from other carnivores. Their forepaws have exceptional sense of touch, which is used to identify food items more than their other senses. In those forepaws, they have these highly developed nerves that give it this tactile sense. Even though the raccoon oftentimes is seen in the day, it still does most of its food gathering and hunting at night, especially if you have birdseed out. Some of these sounds you may or may not have heard. They often are in a group, and they can fuss with each other a lot. Here's a chattering noise they make. Here is a squall. Here's a youngster doing the same squall. I'm looking for its siblings. And here's one when they're squabbling. Quite the ruckus there. One night in one winter time, it was fairly dry out, and I generally only put seed out in the really depth of winter, and this had been after one of those big rains and melt after we'd had a lot of cold weather. And here was this raccoon with this little fox, and I have motion lights, so that helped me get a photo through my window. But I put this photo up to illustrate, you would think, well, gee, why wouldn't the fox go after the raccoon? Well, a lot of these predator species try to gauge their battle. And not only are raccoons oftentimes not alone, they also have very long claws and vicious teeth, you know, and they're pretty gnarly animals. So the fox usually tends to stay away from the raccoon because a lot of these animals don't want to get injured. So that's why you could see a scene like this where you'd think, you know, one animal that might prey on the other or not. And if you see, this is kind of a small fox, and that raccoon looks pretty well fed. Just a quick note, raccoons do act as a reservoir for rabies in the United States. Another reason why putting out bird seed from spring until late autumn is a bad idea, because it not only brings birds, but it brings raccoons and other animals that could be rabid to your yard. The majority of rabies cases in the US are in wildlife, with the raccoon predominating. Here you can see from January to July of 2019, these were the rabid animals that we had reported, 21 total. 3 were bats, very, very small carrier really of rabies. You see that raccoon were 14. So not really something we should be hugely concerned about, but if you see a frothing animal coming towards you, you need to try to slowly beat back up and get away from it. But it's not a common occurrence. It has happened in Connecticut, but not that common. Sly screamy foxes. Though fox can be found hunting in the day or night, it's under cover of darkness where they are most lethal. Right now it's their mating season, as it is also for bobcat and coyotes. They have a well-developed sense of sight, which is true of a lot of canids, hearing, touch, and smell, and they use all of these senses to hunt. They can turn their ears, which help them to locate prey by sound. Like many other predators, including humans, they have binocular vision. Both eyes face forward, but because each eye sees the same scene slightly differently, binocular vision allows the brain to calculate the distance to the prey. Their ears, as I said, they can move them. They're especially sensitive to low frequencies, and they can hear animals burrowing underground. If it hears an animal underground, a fox can dig it up and catch it. But the coolest thing to see is a fox just walking along in the snow, walking, then all of a sudden you'll just see it jump up and pounce and come up with a little vole or a mouse or some kind of little critter. They are excellent hunters. They teach their young to hunt. You can oftentimes see them have a mouse, and the little ones will be throwing the mouse up and down. They do use their sense of smell and sight, and their incredible speed and agility to catch their prey. They can hear the sound of a small mammal digging underground from about 150 yards away. As you see, there's one down there in garbage, probably not going to eat the garbage as much as looking for mice and other rodents that might be in the garbage. That's a gray fox on the right. We do have 2 foxes in Connecticut, the red and gray. The gray fox can actually climb trees, so pretty cool little critter. The red fox is known as Vulpes, V-U-L-P-E-S. It has a call like Jack the Ripper is roaming the streets, and people are screaming as they run away. The screams of this wild city dweller can seem disturbingly human. Occasionally someone thinks there are the sounds made by someone in distress or being attacked, and they call the police. The most commonly heard red fox vocalizations are a quick series of barks and a screamy variation on a howl. The sounds that the red fox makes are the sounds that everybody attributes to the fisher, which you'll learn about as a silent hunter, and it doesn't make these screams. It has a little growl. If it was captured in a trap or something, everything, like even us, would go, eh! You know, we all make that little noise. But when you Google sounds in the night and you get 50 videos with a man showing his face and looking out into the darkness and not showing any animal, and he's saying, oh, that's a fisher, it's almost always a red fox. So anyway, I'm gonna let you hear some of their voices here. So, but first I want to show you this video. It was an incredible video that this woman in Ohio let me use. She doesn't want her name out there because some of these predators out in the farmlands people aren't happy they're there, but this is an incredible video and I thank her for this. So that's one of the fox's little noise. And here's a few others for you. So that's a baby fox in distress, not being probably hurt by something, but lost its family or its mother. Most canids are, pack animals, and they do tend to stay around their family. Here we have that's a baby fox distress call. These are little bitty, the baby's noises, making baby noises. This is called Geckering. It's probably their most unusual call. It's like that guttural chattering with occasional yelps. It's heard when the adults are in aggressive encounters, which may be, warding off a suitor for a female. They're highly territorial. And young kids will play and sometimes make this sound. And that's an alarm call. And these are just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of probably 22 or more sounds that a fox can make. And all of them are very shrill and could be very scary if you're out walking in the cemetery at night or something. Okay, the Wiley Coyote. The coyote it's usually called coyote in the Southwest and coyote up here. These are two different ones that have been in my yard at different times. They can vary in coloration a lot. They can be red like the one on the left. They can look almost like a German Shepherd. They can also be very blonde or gray. So they do have all different colorations, often are mistaken for a wolf, but there are a lot of differentiations in their heads, their ears, and their tails. The coyote has a very developed sense of smell, which he uses for finding food and avoiding dangerous predators. Here, just the coyote kits would have predators, might be a male black bear in the spring, but their biggest predators are humans. In Connecticut, it is unfortunately legal to shoot a coyote anytime. It's supposed to be set up so that if they are attacking your livestock, you can shoot them to protect that. But unfortunately, there are people that just shoot them whenever they see them. They use their sense of smell to spot a prey that's scurrying beneath the snow like the fox. They also use a wide variety of vocalizations to communicate with one another. They howl, they yelp, they have high-pitched cries, best known, but they also bark, growl, and squeal. Family groups yelping in unison can create the illusion of a dozen or more when probably it's a half a dozen or less. They're most often heard around dawn and dusk, but they may respond to sirens and fire whistles at any time of day or night. When you hear all this yelping out in the darkness and say, oh, they've killed an animal, that's not true. Generally speaking, coyotes hunt alone, except for when they're mating, and the alpha male and alpha female will hunt together. When you hear all that yelping, it's when the family unit has got together and they just are yelping. They're just like a noisy family over their lasagna or pizza, or, people when they're talking all at once and greeting each other. In order to not get detected by predators, sometimes coyotes walk on their toes to make as little noise as possible. They can detect hunters coming from a mile away or even more. And they can run of speeds up to 35 miles an hour, and they could actually chase a deer for an hour. But guess what? The deer won't be able to last that long. So they are very well adapted for their environment. Here's some of their noises. Here's a coyote talk. I'm sorry, that's the howl. Here is the, let's see, the talk maybe. Here, oh, I need to turn that. Sorry, I'm not too good with playing these things. That's the little ones getting their voice. It's kind of cartoonish. And then here is a challenge bark. Sorry, that's the howl. I looked at the wrong thing. So that you can hear in the background, you can hear the young one kind of making noise. I'm gonna play that again so you can listen. It's right towards the start. Oh, wait a minute, sorry. Let me see if I get the right one. So the little one's always yip in the background. So you can see they can make quite a ruckus. That's a whole family together. And I'm only going to play this one for a short time because this is a coyote catching cottontail rabbit in distress. So it's kind of disturbing, but it is circle of life. So I'm just going to play a short bit of it. Oh, sorry. I always hit the wrong thing. So that's kind of like what the coyote would be sounding like when he's, you know, attacking a prey. Hey, what about us? So we do have these other critters, though equipped with their own unique defenses. Both the skunk and the porcupine prefer nighttime for foraging. You will see them both out during the day. The porcupine is known as the quill pig. A single porcupine may have up to 30,000 quills. Their quills are made of keratin, just like our hair and fingernails. The quills actually are hardened hollow hairs with barbed tips, and they cover all of their body except the stomach and a little bit of their face. They do vary in length, with the longest ones on the back and the shortest ones on the face. They cannot throw them. When in danger, they just can use their muscles to make them stiff. And if anything comes up to them, the quill will go in them. If you've ever had a dog quilled, and they have barbs on the end and very hard to get out. Because these quills are hollow, they help porcupines float, making them unexpectedly good swimmers. Bet you didn't know they would go swimming. Typically docile animals, they'll raise their quills in self-defense when they feel threatened. I oftentimes have to herd them off the road here where I live at night because people don't see them. And porcupines, like quite of other species of animals, in the winter and after the winter will go to the sides of the road to eat the salt. So when I do put my headlights behind them, they'll start turning in circles, and they're doing that, you know, to show you, hey, look, I got these defenses here. You better not come here. So they're a pretty cool animal, and it is a persuasive deterrent. We have done necropsies on animals, particularly like bobcats, and found some permanent quills in them. Generally, the one animal where we are that really will feed on porcupine is the fisher. Bobcats have been known to prey upon them, but not as much as the fisher. The fisher does hunt in trees, and it can get the porcupine at its belly and then just try a death blow on the face, and then it will take it down and disassemble it. North American porcupines, they use their large front teeth, which are also colored like a beaver's, they're that orange color, to satisfy a healthy appetite of wood. They bark stems, but they have been known to invade campgrounds and chew on canoe paddles. When we used to have wooden canoe paddles, people might come out after a night in their cabin and find that their canoe paddles are all chewed up. They'll also eat fruit, leaves, and springtime buds. They have very bad vision, but they have a great sense of smell. Here's some photos of porcupines I've taken through the years. The one in the bottom middle is a porcupine in a den in a rock outcropping. You can quite often find them there. And again, these are all different sizes and ages. Generally, once they become adult, they're pretty dark and the quills are light colored. When they're young, they can be very tannish looking. Again, they will raise the quills even when there may not be an imminent threat, but just because they can. They mate in late summer and early fall and give birth to just about one, guess what their baby's called, a porcupet in the spring. They're usually solitary. They forage and live alone. They might den together in small groups called a prickle during severe winters. They don't hibernate. They can live up to 30 years, although we have very, very many hit by cars. But 5 and 10 is average because, again, they forage for salt and roads. They're very slow moving and people don't see them and they get hit by cars. So here's some of the noises they make. This is one chewing down and having a content kind of little moan and grunt. They do have a battle chatter. In mating season, they might shriek and scream. It's hard though to get the sound, so I've got to work on finding more sounds for them. There's more to me than meets the nose, the skunk says. Pretty interesting. Most of us are probably wary of that. When we're having our last phase of our bobcat collar study, and when the biologists get a skunk, they're very careful on opening that gate, the door to the cage to let them out. It does carry that lethal weapon of stink that many dogs learn to avoid, but some dogs never learn to avoid it. It's a sulfuric spray and it has a range of up to 10 feet, but the odor can be detected up to 1.5 miles. When I see a dead skunk in the middle of the road, remember that song? I always turn off my air and close the vents because otherwise that smell can linger in your car for a long time. Skunks are fairly easygoing animals. They don't often attack unless they're provoked. They can afford to be because they have this formidable defense mechanism. They have 2 musk glands equipped with nipples under their tails, and these glands hold enough stinky skunk musk for 5 to 6 sprays. So yes, they can spray more than once. And they also are very accurate. They can accurately spray their musk 10 to 15 feet, and the mist can reach up to 30 feet. The spray reeks to high heaven. If you're close up, it stings the eyes. It could temporarily blind a victim and also induce nausea. It's a lasting stink and can cling to whatever was sprayed for many days, as some of you may know if your dog has been sprayed. Several different sulfur-containing compounds give this stink its stench. When a skunk is threatened, before it will put out its stink, it will chatter its teeth, turn its back to the threat, even stamp its feet and lift its tail before spraying. So you have a little warning to run. And if most of us are fast enough to get out of 30-foot range pretty quickly. If confronted by a skunk in threat mode, your best bet is to back very slowly and quietly away. It's best not to approach them or startle them, obviously. They also have very poor eyesight, but they have excellent sense of smell and hearing. They're omnivorous, so they eat plant and animal material, change their diets as the seasons change, but they will eat insects, larvae, earthworms, lizards, salamanders, berries. So they kind of are a generalist as far as what they eat. So here's what they sound like. So a very little squeaky sound. So a contrast to ferocity, North America's only marsupial is the opossum. It can look very fierce, although it doesn't really bite much. It wakes at twilight to begin its first search for fruit, roots, insects, small mammals, or anything it can find to eat. It has very few defenses beyond its habit of playing dead when threatened. So it does derive its protection from the dark. It also gains survival advantage from its high reproductive rate. Many animals like mice and other prey will have a lot of offspring because this ensures that their species will thrive. It also has the greatest number of teeth of any North American mammal. And guess what? It eats a lot of ticks. It's estimated they eat about 4,000 ticks a month. So it's a good little critter to have around, and it really won't hurt too much. So also, if you find a dead possum in the road, oftentimes stop, because many times the young survive, and you can get them to a wildlife rehabilitator, and they can be saved. And this is really an important thing to do, because as I said, they do eat a lot of ticks. Shrieking carnivores of Connecticut are not. On the left is a bobcat that was sleeping on my deck a year or so ago, and I was able to shoot a lot of photos through the window. I like this one. It was really yawning, but it shows those canines pretty well there. And on the right, of course, is the fisher. It's not a fisher cat. It's a weasel. Never was a cat. There's not any accurate reason why it was called a cat, other than way back in French, there was a polecat that they called a fichet, and that possibly might be the derivation of fisher cat. Some states in their animal species biographies have listed fisher then also known as whatever fisher cat, because they've given up trying to tell people it's not a fisher cat. So anyway, bobcats have keen senses of vision and hearing. Their sense of smell is also developed, but they're more dependent upon sight and sound to aid their style of hunting. The noise of screeching bobcats has been likened to a child in distress. Typically a sound made by competing males in winter during the mating season can be really scary, and you'll hear that. Even so, many people wouldn't guess it was a bobcat that woke them up. Because they're elusive, they're naturally cautious, particularly around humans. They're almost wholly nocturnal in urban areas. So few are ever seen, although in our bobcat study, which has been going for 3 years now with UConn and the DEP, we found that a lot of bobcats are very urban, because guess what? There's a lot of garbage and a lot of rodents that hang around that garbage. So if you call me fisher cat, I'll scream. The fisher is a mid-sized carnivore. It's the second largest member of the weasel family in Connecticut. The river otter is our largest. Despite its name, fisher rarely consume fish or other aquatic prey. Again, name misnomer. They're renowned for their ability to prey upon porcupines, as I said, and they are unique among forest carnivores. They are well adapted to forage effectively within the canopy of the forest, where they will eat squirrels or porcupine or other tree, even birds, other tree dwelling animals. They are very opportunistic. Their diet's diverse. It will be small mammals, reptiles, insects, birds. They'll even eat fruit and fungi. They like black bears. One time somebody asked me what good is a black bear? Well, they're seed dispersers, because they eat fruit and seeds and acorns, and they disperse seeds, which is also true of the fisher. We have evidence in necropsies of white-tailed deer predation in a fisher. A lot of times in the winter, things like fisher and other smaller predators, bobcat might eat deer, but generally they're only attacked because they're in a weakened state or sick. Again, as I said, fisher is one of the few predators that eat porcupines out west. Mountain lions, if they're really hungry, they'll eat porcupines, because obviously they can dispatch it pretty quickly without getting quilled. Again, fishers are often blamed for that nighttime sound like a scream, but again, it's most likely a fox. The fisher and the martins, which we have, can rotate their hind feet, allowing them to descend trees head first, which is not true of most of our other mammals. Here's the most prominent sound made by a fisher. And I can tell you that's a highly magnified sound because, like I said, they're silent predators, and likely that was either a captive, one that is captive that's growling at people coming nearby, because there's most things not coming at it, making it scared where it has to growl. So that's amplified a little more. A friend of mine in Maine had these fishers hanging out in her backyard for a whole summer and got these excellent photos. So she let me use them. I'm very grateful for that. Here's what fisher look like. You do have fisher. There are pockets of fisher in Litchfield County. So you can see what their tracks look like. A friend of mine, Janet Pesatoro, is the author of the Camera Trapping Guide, which is an excellent book. It tells you how to use game cams and real cameras to take photos, but she also has a guide on animals, animal behavior and tracks, and a really great book. And she does allow me to use a lot of her videos that are obtained in a lot of my wildlife talks. So I'm very grateful to her for that. Here's some fisher Charlie Schaefer got in Naugatuck, just hanging out in his driveway. You can see there's the female, an adult on the right and the young ones on the left. So very interesting creatures. Now here's the bobcat. Again, I want you to hang on to your seat right now. Again, the woman in Ohio loaned me this, and it's just amazing. Now this was just with a regular webcam, game cam, and I encourage you to get one and put it about no more than waist high on a tree in an area where you think there are wildlife paths, and you just be amazed what you will get. The price on those aren't that expensive unless you want to get a wireless, but great thing to see. So here's a bobcat scream. Kind of scary, likely calling a mate. It could be a warning call as well, but they're kind of similar. So I'm very grateful to be able to have that to let you see and hear. Wait, I'm supposed to go. So here's a bobcat. On the right's a Barkhamsted bobcat. I went out on my deck one day and I thought something was looking at me, and I looked over to the right and here was this beautiful bobcat. So I was grateful to be able to get a good photo of it. Here's some more of the bobcat sounds. Here's a cry. Oops. Very cat-like. They are cat-like in a lot of ways, or cats are like them in a lot of ways. I love that commercial. I don't like commercials too much, but I like the one on TV for some cat food where it has the cat jumping and turning into a bobcat. So here's a growl, I think. Let's see. That was likely not very happy. It was probably warding off another bobcat. And here's some assorted bobcat sounds here. I could never even know that was a bobcat, but now you do. So here's a martin. They're little weasels in the weasel family. And, quite interesting. You can see them around waterways. Here's what they sound like. It kind of makes up for its size. They're a carnivore. They are a member of the weasel family, as I said. They're similar in color to mink and martins. They're usually found in uplands, while mink are more associated with streams and coastal areas. These are sometimes known as pine marten. They can be up to 15 to 25 inches long, not counting their tail. Generally not found in Connecticut, but there have been some noted. They're very courageous, as you can tell by their growl. When they're pressed closely in open areas, though, they might burrow into loose snow and tunnel for long distances to get away. But if they can't burrow, they'll climb the nearest tree to avoid capture. When all else fails, I'm told by a hunter that the marten will stand and fight to its death. So they're pretty brave little things. Mink, of course, are known for their fur. Let me see, I think I have the mink. Sorry. Wait, hold on, sir. Mink on the right are known for their fur, and when it's in prime condition, and their guard hairs, which are the underneath hairs, are the thickest. Then they become a chocolate brown. They can become almost white depending on their environment in the winter. Their tails to 1/3 to 1/4 of their body length. To adapt to their aquatic lifestyle, they have semi-webbed toes, which help you identify their tracks. And they have these, in their guard hairs, they have this oil that helps waterproof them. They do spend a lot of time in water. I see them a lot on the west branch of the Farmington River. I'm sure you could see them on the Bantam River. They can dive up to 16 feet and swim underwater for almost 50 feet, pretty incredible. And they can swim under ice. They have a musk that's very pungent and similar to a skunk, and they use it to mark their territory and for defense. So pretty incredible little critters. Weasel, this is a short-eared weasel. Here's a little noise they make. A little pee-pee sound, and you can see weasels, but like with any wildlife, you have to go and sit still somewhere. This picture is by Paul Fusco, who's the DEP photographer, and I'm able to use his photos if I need them. I haven't been able to get a picture of a weasel myself, except for on my game cam. So bats everywhere. Here are the kind of bats we have in Connecticut. We have a lot of bats. Thanks to Bram Stoker's Dracula and other literature that demonizes bats, our impressions of this mammal are mostly like it's creepy and looking to bite and give you rabies. But this is very far from the truth. And as for them carrying rabies, less than 1% of bats have rabies. They're furred, warm-blooded mammals. Their body lengths can be 3 to 6 inches, and wingspans can actually range up to 16 inches. They do have good eyesight, contrary to popular belief, and they rely on vision for their long distance orientation. But for their short distance navigation and catching food at night, they use, as I said before, echolocation. And it's a sonar system that's helped them, like dolphins, locate targets and background objects from the echoes of ultrasonic sounds. These sounds are given slowly when they are foraging and quicken as they pursue and capture an insect. Detection, pursuit, and capture of an insect usually takes 1 second. So it's a pretty quick attacker. Night insects have the most to fear from bats. I'm sure you've seen bats going around grabbing all kinds of insects. Each night they can eat their body weight or more in insects, numbering in the thousands. And because they eat so many insects, which have exoskeletons made of a shiny material called chitin, C-H-I-T-I-N, some bat poop sparkles or guano. Cool but weird fact, I know. This insect heavy diet helps foresters and farmers protect their crops from pests. They have few natural predators. Disease is one of their biggest threat. Obviously the white nose syndrome you've heard about, named for a white fungus on the muzzle and wing of bats that affects hibernating bats. It has been detected in 33 states and 7 provinces. Millions and millions, almost up to 10 million bats have died so far from the white nose syndrome. Scientists are working to try to come up with a understand disease, but we can help by avoiding places where bats are hibernating. I'm sure most of us are not going spelunking in the winter, but anyway, that's one way to help. They are night creatures that eat lots of insects and do not bite you. or the insects that do bite you. They may be small, but again, they're very fast. They can fly up to speeds of over 100 miles per hour, pretty incredible. Also, they are medical marvels. About 80 medicines come from plants that rely on bats for their survival. While bats are not blind, again, studying how bats use echolocation has helped science develop navigational aids for the blind. Research on bats has also led to many advances in vaccines. So, and bats do make noises. So the first one is just the sound of the bat wings, a large group of bats. I bet after watching many movies, a lot of people would be probably scared if they heard all of that. Here's bats chattering. And listen closely to this one. These are bats squeaking while they're flying by. Almost sounds like 10 and 20 blackbirds, huh? And here's a large group of bats again. So pretty cool. Bats are the only flying mammal. While the flying squirrel can only glide for short distances, the bats are true flyers. This is one of my, I love this little critter, the flying squirrel. A bat's wing resembles a modified human hand. So look at the skin between your fingers, larger, thinner, and stretched, and that's a flexible skin membrane that the bat has, and helps them fly and make them very agile flyers. The southern flying squirrel is a smaller species, 8 to 10 inches in length. The northern flying squirrels are 10 to 12 inches long. We have both. One night I have a 1760 house and I was sitting in my living room with the big hearth there, and I thought something was looking at me, and all of a sudden there was a flying squirrel sitting on a bookshelf. I'm like, oh, what are you doing here? And as a lot of animals, they have very large eyes. They do rely on their eyesight to hunt. They might be called gliding squirrels rather than flying squirrels. They have that special membrane between their front and back legs that allows them to glide through the air between trees. When it wants to go from another tree without touching the ground, it just launches itself from a high branch, spreads out its limbs so the membrane is exposed, and it uses slight movements of its legs to steer. And when they come for a landing, their tail acts as a brake. They can cover more than 150 feet in a single glide. Pretty incredible to see. Their big round eyes are one reason why they look so cute to humans. But while in infancy in mammals, this usually indicates young infancy. In flying squirrels, it does help them see better. They've evolved these big eyes to collect more light for better night vision. Again, sort of like the owls and some other night animals. So here they are coming in for a landing. Pretty cool thing to see. And you can get a flying squirrel and make a flying squirrel box. Pretty cool. You might get a screech owl in it too, though. So here is when I'm having trouble getting to the sound bar here. Okay. Tiny little noises. Another interesting thing about a flying squirrel, I'm trying to learn tracking, it's really hard. And acorns, every single little thing from wood mice to chipmunks to gray squirrels, red squirrels, flying squirrels, they all chew an acorn differently. And the flying squirrel actually makes a round bevel edge around the acorn. So knowing how each of these critters chew acorns helps you identify what's been there, believe it or not. So stealth builders and night moves. The beavers are rodent like rats, mice, and squirrels. It's North America's largest rodent. They can weigh between 30 and 60 pounds. They can be 35 to 52 inches long from head to the tip of the tail. They're semi-aquatic rodents that live in and around water, and they are a keystone species, which means that their presence has a larger effect on the whole environment. They make very healthy wetlands. They do cause some trouble. They can live 10 to 15 years in the wild, but there have been reports of them living to 20 years old, and in captivity, one beaver lived to 25. We do have beaver trapping in Connecticut, and then they can be trapped if they're causing flooded roads and stuff. They are ecosystem engineers, and boy, I kayak and see so many. It's so incredible, this animal. They can create, change, or destroy a habitat, but there probably is no clear example of a keystone engineer than the beaver. These ecosystems, they rely on beavers to take down older dead trees, and people don't think about this along river banks, and they'll use them for their dams, but this allows the new healthier trees to grow in abundance, and helps create the wetlands that allow a variety of animals and plants to survive. You're most likely only to see them right before dusk and right up to dawn. It's rare to see them gnawing on trees or building dams, because most of this work is done at night. You can go out at night and see them. It's pretty incredible. Here's some of the noises they make. That's their tail slapping and warning something. That's them chewing. Not really scary, but interesting. Like in the daytime on your Bantam River, I've gone there when there's not a lot of people there. You have to go early or late. And I've sat by a beaver lodge quietly, and I've actually heard the young inside. The beavers do keep their kits for 2 years. And so the family will be inside the top part of their lodge. So those are noises that they do make, and they do slap their tail in warning. A lot of beaver slaps on the Bantam River, I can tell you that. Okay, so here we have the otter, very incredible creature. You can probably see this on the Bantam River as well, and other streams and creeks around Connecticut. We have a healthy population. Here's an otter snarl. Here's their whistly scream. And here's like kind of a whistle snarl. And hey, didn't you forget a critter or two? So black bears, when they come out, we do have them out a lot during the day, mostly because, again, humans put birdseed out, and they are opportunistic feeders. They like the easy feed. Doesn't mean they still won't forage. This is a yearling and her mom that I've studied for many years. Not the yearling, but the mom, the sow, and they came out. Oftentimes black bears are not true. They're not true hibernators. They go into a sense of torpor, but they can come out at any time. So these two were out a little earlier than normal one spring, but it still was like March probably, and that is early for the females and their yearling. But they come out sooner than the sows with their new cubs. Here's a few random bear sounds. Those are the little cubs chattering in the den. That's a black bear warning something that they better kind of stay away. Black bears don't really growl. Grizzlies growl, but black bears have these moans, these hisses. They'll chatter their teeth if they're really nervous, and it's more about being nervous than, you know, getting aggressive. They generally only get aggressive if they're almost like some dog, food aggressive dogs, you know, if they're expecting to have that seed out there and it's not there, they'll hang around. And then if you come out, they might hiss at you. They do stand up. That's just to get a better look at something. It's not a threatening move like the grizzly bears. And here is, I forget what this one is. So that's his hissing and chattering its teeth. If you see, if you've, you know, alarmed a black bear, just stand up tall, raise your arms, say, hey bear, and start talking to it, start walking backwards generally. And 99% of the time, it's not going to, it won't pursue you. It might do what's called a bluster, a false charge. And it's kind of comical, but not if you're on the receiving end of it. It kind of just slaps both of its front paws and then lurches about a yard, and then it always stops. So, but if you have one that continues to come towards you, you start backing up, talk to it, don't run. And if you have to, just throw things at it, and by that time it'll probably leave. So okay, so part of the night's cacophony. We all look forward to the spring for many reasons. I happen to prefer the fall and winter, but I do love the early spring when we hear all of these critters. So let's see, the one we first hear usually is a spring peeper. Amazingly deafening noise. And then we have the little wood frog, which I know you've heard. And of course, we know the bullfrog. And down in Texas, we hear this cricket a lot more than I hear up here, but I grew up in Texas, and to me, that was the typical night sound. So let's put them all together like we can hear in the spring. And let's see. Let me start, hold on. Quite deafening. Now, okay, so I'm going to play these two sounds, and this is a little test. So I want you to write in chat what you think is making this sound, and then it'll be recorded, and then I'll show you in the last slide what's making this sound. But I'd like you guys, or you women, to write down what you think it is, just for fun. If we were in person, I could have you say that, but I can't. So here we go. Okay, one more. Okay, don't be shy. I don't see the chat numbers going up. Is somebody going to type in and make a guess before I go to the next screen? I'm going to give you 10 seconds. I still don't see the number changing, but maybe it is. Let's see, chat. Okay, we got Barbara. Yay, Barbara guessed. Somebody question mark mesmerized by Bibby. Okay, well, I'm going to show you what it is now. Well, supposedly what it is. I can't guarantee it. Ah, Sasquatch. So that's what, there are all these people that believe in Sasquatch and they say these are the sounds, but not really. So, okay, I'm going to come back and then we can discuss whatever, I'll answer whatever questions you want. It always takes me a moment to find how to get back to me, to you. Hold on, I gotta find, oh, start video. Okay, there we go. Sorry. I should know this. I've done hundreds of these things and I can never remember. So let me get the group look. Okay. All right.
I'm just
Okay.
gonna stop the screen share. Wow. That was really fascinating. I kind of feel like I need a sound dictionary to be able to refer to anytime I hear a sound outside.
Okay.
Cameras. So basically wanting to know where you can purchase one, and then also some curiosity about what was the best way to sort of set those up. Do you recommend putting them in a position where they can catch both flying creatures and ground creatures, or would you recommend getting multiple cameras for multiple?
Well, the good thing is game cams have come down in price. So, they're pretty affordable, and a lot of people prefer to have the wireless technology so they can get it sent to their phone. But you know what, if you put them somewhere where you can go out and just take the SD cards out, every so often, to me, that's fine. Generally, we tell people to put them not more than waist high, keep them low so you see the animals crossing by. You might see, owls do go to the ground to hunt. I've had cameras high sometimes and never really caught much. So we always recommend, we also recommend, depending on where you live, to get the armor. Each camera has like a case you put it in and you put a lock or a cable around it. Black bears can dislodge the cameras, and animals do have curiosity about them. So, if you're going to invest in a camera, you probably should invest. They have cable locks in one of those metal. So, it's fun to put them in different spots, but, start out with one and see what you get. And right now in the winter is a good time to tell where the wildlife paths are because of the snow. Whereas it's not as easy once we get in the springtime, unless you have muddy areas. So you can kind of see the intersection of where all the squirrels have gone, and then you might see a coyote or you might see bobcat tracks. And it's really cool. It's exciting to see what you get, then you'll know what kind of animals you have in your backyard.
Yeah, that's really cool.
You can get them
what a good idea.
You can get them on Amazon from Cabela's, all kinds of places have them. I think Tractor Supply in the winter or during hunting season sells them, so it's pretty easy to get them and program. I do say, especially in the winter, you need to use lithium batteries, which are more expensive, but I think you could get a charger for it or something, but the regular batteries don't seem to last as long, so.
Right, that is something to think about with the cold. So just a reminder for everyone watching, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in either the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be able to pick them up there. There was another question from one of the participants who actually told a little bit of a story about a skunk that had been living under the porch at the family summer house, and that her parents would catch it in a have-a-heart trap and then bring it to the dump, and that they did this several times and the skunk never sprayed them. And I guess her question is, was it because the skunk didn't know it was in danger, or was it because it couldn't lift their tails? And then my follow-up question would be, since we are kind of living in a state where there's a lot of interaction between animals and humans, what is the best thing to do if you happen to find a skunk, cohabitating with you?
Right. I mean, I think what you did would be my preference, because if you call the Narcon people, the wildlife people, not the biologists, but the people that have the business, generally those animals are taken away and probably euthanized. I mean, I can't say exactly, but you know, it does happen. I would say the skunk was either young, because they don't fully develop their abilities to spray when they're real young. And once it was probably startled and afraid. If it was an adult skunk, it could also be startled and afraid. If it was a very small, have a heart trap, it could kind of inhibit, you know, their ability. So it's hard to say. Great question, something I'm gonna try to find out more about, but that would be that's what I would surmise from what I know about skunks. But I commend them for using have a heart traps. Most of these traps you can use pretty easily yourself, and you know, just take the animal to not too far away, but somewhere that's safe. You know, a lot of animals, you want to kind of keep them in their same territory, but like I have woods roads that go in the state forest, so I could just take them, you know, a mile away or something.
Okay. All right, I don't see, if anyone has any last questions, feel free to drop them in. In the meantime, I just had one quick question for myself, which was, you know, were there any sort of tips or suggestions you would have for those of us who want to make our property, you know, as friendly to wildlife as possible? Something that sort of, you know, how we should take care of our properties if we want to be hospitable to.
Yeah, you can go on the DEEP website and Google like wildlife habitats, and they'll tell you they have lists of plants that are good to put out for not only pollinators, but different wildlife, obviously berries and apple trees and stuff like that. But also when you're clearing dead wood from your yard and everything, you can actually build brush piles that become homes for animals in the winter. So just designate an area of your property, kind of like the farmers used to go and throw all their junk in one area. You can throw all your limbs and your trees and your branches all together, and it actually makes a safe haven for a lot of animals. They use that. So various types of plants you can put. I always encourage people, there's a lot, and there's a list of native plants on the DEEP website that are will bring you many more species of birds in the summer than bird seed. So you can save your money from buying bird seed in the summer and give it to the birds when they need it in the winter. But they have a whole list of native plants that will draw all kinds of wildlife. And again, setting up brush piles, very important. If you have dead trees, which a lot of us are getting because of the dead ash, but a lot of people have old trees that we call snags. Leave them there if you can, if they're not in danger of falling on you or your dog. You know, just leave them out in your woods or in your yard, even if they're in the center of your yard, because woodpeckers can use those for many, many years. Right. And other animals like flying squirrels might take up a home there. So leaving that dead tree, you know, rather than reducing it to a stump, is a pretty good thing, as long as I said it's not tall and gonna fall on you or anything. So anyway, I'm very honored to have talked to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. I talk about a lot of other species, especially around there, your beavers. I have a lot of photos of bantam beavers, so that might be something you want to think about someday. But thank you very much, and hope you all enjoyed it. And
well, thank you so much, Jenny. This was really, really, really fabulous, and we really thank you for coming and sharing all your expertise with us. And thank you for the audience for checking in today. Just a note, Sean, my colleague, has posted in the chat just a reminder that we have more lectures coming up. With the next Women's Forum lecture is next Thursday, the 10th. So you can sign up. There's some links in the chat on how to do that. And yeah, and also when you leave, just a reminder that there will be a survey that pops up. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, that just helps us know how we're doing and gives you an opportunity for feedback. So we'd love it if you filled those out as well.
You know what, I see a few last questions here.
Oh, great.
Margie, yes, they were under the Q&A.
Here we are.
You know, all animals can have albinoism in them, or what we call leucism. You'll see sometimes a white cardinal, or, you know, there have been like leucistic deer that are all white. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible to see that kind of thing, and try to take photos if you can. And you can always share stuff like that on the DEEP website. They like to know what kind of things are out there like that. Baby raccoons generally would be aggressive only if they had rabies. If they ran into your cat, they probably would snarl and chatter at it, but generally speaking, I doubt they would hurt it unless it, you know, had rabies or something. So, you know, all animals are wild, and we do recommend that people don't let cats outside, but you say on your back patio, you're probably watching your cat. But, you know, when we start getting towards early evening, that's when bobcat are out, and they will eat a cat. They don't know that it's a cat. You know, they don't know it's a pet. To them, it's prey. You know, you need to be careful with little critters like that. If you've seen things around, if you haven't seen these kind of critters in your yard at the time, you know, you'll probably be all right. But wildlife are random, and they do come along. So. Thanks. Anyway, thank y'all very much, and everybody stay well and enjoy the rest of the winter.
Great. Thank you so much, Ginny, and thank you everyone for listening today. Have a great afternoon.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh wait, somebody asked, they don't, possums generally don't carry ticks, they eat them. So it's nice to have them around, Elaine. So that was like a last minute question though.
Last minute, got that in there.